All right. Thanks for bearing with us, guys. Welcome to New Stripe City podcast for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie. And as you guys will probably notice, this is a little bit different from the norm. I was actually in Florida, so we had to evacuate for Hurricane Irma. So came up to Alabama, so no worries. Appreciate you guys checking in on me just to make sure I'm all right. But yeah, hopefully everything will be okay. There's a little bit of technical difficulties, but we'll get through it. But G, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm happy that you made it safely out of Florida. And I guess I'm preparing for the kickback here in Atlanta tomorrow with all the rain and wind.
Right. It's like we're all getting affected by it, right?
Yeah. But we made it, making it work.
Right.
Sorry.
So obviously we're here today to talk about game one, going against the Ravens. Obviously, you know, the Bengals have had some success against the Ravens within the past, I think 6 games. We're 5-1 against them. Going into this game, Joe Flacco, like we talked about on the last show, is going to actually be active for this game. He hasn't played in the preseason, has only practiced a little bit the last couple of weeks. G, what are your thoughts going into this game as far as what we need to do and how we can come out of this game with a victory week one?
Well, definitely our offense, like I said last week, our offense needs to be successful in the end zone. Like, we need touchdowns. We don't need field goals. And I think if we can figure out how to make those connections in the end zone, then we will be successful. I think our defense will be able to hold it together enough, at least for the Ravens week one. And without, Pac-Man, without Vontaze Burfict in this first week, I think our defense can hold it down against the Ravens. But we have to offensively convert in the end zone.
Right, I totally agree. I think, like you said, we have to play smart on defense. With a lot of these edge rushers, I know usually Carlos Dunlap plays good against the Ravens. We're definitely going to need him as well as Geno Atkins. But I'm looking forward to Jordan Willis, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and have a bold prediction that Jordan Willis will end this game with 1.5 sacks. And the reason that I say that is Jordan Willis, as we know just from watching the preseason, had 4 sacks in 4 games. And I think that most of the attention for Baltimore, just from their coaching staff and everything, is probably going to go, and rightfully so, it should go to Carlos Dunlap and Geno Atkins. So I think that will free up a guy like a Jordan Willis to come through and have a big game. And I think, like you said, the defense will definitely be key to the game. I've been hearing a lot of the Ravens fans talking. They're actually pretty confident, and it's kind of weird for me to see them be like that. And I've heard them say that their defense this year is vastly improved, which I believe is the case too. But it's like they're talking like Ed Reed and Ray Lewis are walking back through that door, and I really don't see it.
This week, just watching TV, watching the shows, and they talk about the matchups, and they're talking about the Ravens, and they're just like, oh yeah, the Ravens defense is nice. They got the secondary stepped it up in the offseason, and like apparently they had some like crazy amazing safety that I just didn't realize was there. But I still don't think that I don't think that they're going to come through with the win. I think it's going to be us. I think we're going to hold it down this week, and I'm just excited that football's back more than anything, and I'm ready to start playing.
So. Right. I think their defense is somewhat overrated because it seems like the majority of what people are rating them off of is a combination of how they were last year and some of the performances that they had in the preseason this year. So I actually went back because I heard all of the Ravens talking about it, and I looked back at the schedule of the teams that they played, and it was not impressive. Like, they're talking about all of this, we haven't allowed much passing yards. Number one is the preseason. How many first-team offenses are going to play the entire game? But number one, they played the Washington Redskins the very first game, in which we obviously know any first-team player is probably going to play at most a series. Yeah. And honestly, like, it's Kirk Cousins, and he's coming in with a whole bunch of new weapons, like a Terrell Pryor and some of these other guys. So why would you really expect him to come in there and really light you guys up? That was kind of confusing to me. Then their second game was against the Miami Dolphins, which was like Jay Cutler's first game after being on the team for 3 days. So what would you really expect Jay Cutler to do against you guys? And then I think after that, there was another unimpressive team. The Bills. I mean, nobody's scared of the Bills offense. I don't even know if Sammy Watkins even played in that game. I don't know if they traded him before that game or what. I don't think you had three great performances against, below average passing offenses. So, I mean, honestly, outside of Washington, which I really can't say that they're above average because you played more than likely against Colt McCoy. No, I'm not giving you credit for that. And our team is vastly different than that. We have more weapons this year. AJ Green, I don't understand why they're so confident, because I don't care if you went and signed, anybody in the NFL. Tony Jefferson is not going to change your luck against AJ Green, bro. That's not going to change.
And not when you have, it's not now just AJ Green. And if that's the only person that we're concerned about in your defense, then I'm not worried either, because you can take out, if you want to hold down AJ Green the whole game. It's not like we don't have other receivers. Brandon LaFell is healthy and playing. I mean, Joe Mixon is healthy and playing. So we have offensive weapons besides AJ Green. If there's just one player that y'all have all this confidence in.
Exactly. And that was my point yesterday, too. It's we have Eric Weddle and we have Tony Jefferson. Well, we have Tyler Eifert. And I don't know if you watched Tyler Eifert in 2015, but he absolutely destroyed Cam Chancellor. And I don't think that any of those safeties that they have are on the level of a Cam Chancellor. So they're going to have their hands full, with Tyler Eifert. They're always going to have their hands full with AJ Green. But like you said, G, we have other weapons like Brandon LaFell, and we also have Joe Mixon, who I really don't understand how they're really going to stop him if you couldn't stop Rex Burkhead last year.
Right. Oh, really? Seriously. And I mean, I'm excited. Oh my gosh. I just really want the offense to click. I want to see successful offensive plays. Andy, it's time to step it up. Let's go for it this year. I want you to be that elite quarterback that I think you have the potential to be.
Right. I think like you said, you hit the nail on the head. If there was any other year for Andy to come out and have a big year, I think it's this year. We almost saw it in 2015. Yeah. Obviously, he got hurt. But, coming into this season, he's got a healthy Tyler Eifert back. He's got AJ Green back. A lot of people minimize the fact that AJ Green and Tyler Eifert only played in 3 games together last year. And then you have Brandon LaFell, who found his way. And it seemed like from day one last year that they had a chemistry. It's only going to expand this year. You've got 3 talented running backs with a healthy Giovanni Bernard back, a Jeremy Hill, and a Joe Mixon. So there is no excuse really for Andy to not perform at a high level. And I have complete faith in Andy. I think he's an underrated quarterback for sure. He's one of those quarterbacks that you have to put weapons around him, which I think Joe Flacco is, which is a huge reason why I don't think we actually fear Joe Flacco. I actually think Andy Dalton's better than him, and I won't blink twice on saying that.
Well, yeah, at this point in his career, Joe Flacco's, yeah.
Right, it's crazy, G, because, honestly, the only thing Joe Flacco has done better than Andy Dalton is have a better postseason record and has won a Super Bowl. Outside of that, when you look at even going all the way back to Andy Dalton's rookie year, Andy had a better QB rating than Joe Flacco, when he was in his 3rd year. Throughout his career, outside of postseason accomplishments and obviously the postseason record, he's a better quarterback than Joe Flacco. But the thing that I don't understand is the Ravens fans have a ton of confidence, but the Bengals, I think Jeff Hobson from Bengals.com posted some numbers, and the Bengals Joe Flacco actually has the most interceptions. He has 20 interceptions against the Bengals, or I think it's 21, and he has 20 interceptions against the Browns and Steelers combined. So he is wildly unsuccessful against the Cincinnati Bengals, which I don't understand how Baltimore fans are so confident that they're going to absolutely win this game. I think when you look at it, too, they're discounting our defense. You brought that up earlier. We have a very good defense. We've always had a good defense, and that defense hasn't done anything but add, more ammo to it. So you talk about going into a game with two good defenses, I have to give us the edge in terms of offense because I think that our offense is easily better than Baltimore. I mean, you're talking about a running back core where you have all three of our starters could start, or all three of our players could start on your team. Like Terrence West, Danny Woodhead. Danny Woodhead might do something here or there. We obviously know about him since that San Diego playoff game. But, there's nobody that scares you. You look at Jeremy Maclin, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of worried about Jeremy Maclin, but other than that, who else are you worried about?
But then, more than anything, it's just like they haven't all played together at all. Like, Joe Flacco hasn't played the whole preseason. So basically, this is their first game where all their offense is playing together anyway. And I think that that's the bigger concern, that they're not going to be on the same page. Like, how well can you play with all these offensive people who at one time in their own rights were great, but we don't know if they're going to be great now at this point in their careers, and you have not played with them in an actual game.
Right, and we saw that. Sorry to cut you. I didn't mean to cut you off, but we saw that last year with Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd was a talented receiver, but Brandon LaFell had more of a connection with Andy Dalton. He had that chemistry. Right. So that's huge. Like you said, Jeremy Maclin is only going to be as good as the experience and the practice and the chemistry that he has with Joe Flacco. If he has no chemistry with the guy, then we could see Brashard Perriman ended up being the guy that he targets the most. So I think that's a very valid point.
Right.
But there was some possible news, and it's still up in the air. I still think that he's not going to play. But John Ross is going to be a game-time decision. What do you think about that, G?
It's so random. I don't know why I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning, but I was up as Ian Rappaport was tweeting. So it was like 2 minutes, and he just tweeted. He's like, "Oh, John Ross game time decision. He's going to see if he can go." And I'm just like, wow, but that was like, I don't understand, because if he sprained his knee and they said like 4 to 6 weeks, I'm not sure if I want him to play at this point. It's kind of like, do you take the risk of just playing for the sake of game one? Or do we just let you sit out so we can make sure you're fully healed? Because I don't want any more issues with you.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure what it is, if the Bengals are trying to play like Jedi mind tricks or what they're doing. If it were me, one thing that I would do is that I would activate John Ross just to keep the Ravens coaches on their heels. But I would probably have him on a snap count and kind of use him as a decoy. I think I remember a couple years ago the Seahawks doing something similar with Jimmy Graham, where they actually had him lined up out there, but he really didn't run routes like that. It was just to keep them honest. Right. So I think if you did something like that with John Ross, where you're not putting him in the way of an injury or something like that, and maybe you do that. Maybe you do just activate him just to mess with the minds of them. Like I said, maybe you throw him out there to be a decoy on one side and you go to AJ Green or someone else on the other side. But I think, like you said, if it's going to be something that's going to put John Ross in the risk of, re-aggravating that knee or something like that, maybe we should hold off. Because to go from 4 to 5 weeks, like you said, to he might be a game-time decision is kind of wild. I think if he did respond pretty good from his knee, I think it's realistic to think that maybe he sits this game and then comes back week 2 against the Texans, which would be good, because it's crazy because John Ross actually practiced in the helmet and everything. He just practiced on a limited basis. So we'll see how things go. But if you had a guess, I guess, for the MVP of this game beforehand, which player on the Bengals do you see being that player?
Andy Dalton.
Nice.
Andy. I'm not going to say anybody individually in the offense, even though I know AJ Green has the ability to be that person that could have like a 200-yard receiving game. That's cool. But I think if we win the game and we win the game because our offense scored touchdowns, I think you got to give it to Andy because, yes, Andy, you stepped it up. You were successful in your position. You got us the W by getting the ball out to these players. I think I would give it to Andy. That's who if we're successful in this game, my MVP is going to Andy Dalton.
Right. I think I'm just going to be conservative here, and I'm going to go with A.J. Green. I mean, he's known as the Ravens killer.
Yeah.
Every game he's played in them, he's gone off. The only game that they beat us in the past 6 games was the game where he was inactive. And if you actually remember, he actually missed both games last year. We still beat them without him. So just looking at him this year, going into this season, the offseason regimen that he's been on, I know some of you guys watched some of the workout videos that I've uploaded during the offseason. He's been boxing. He's been getting his body back. And I think he's physically at a level that he's never really been at before. And I think that will actually help him on the field as far as his durability and how good he is. And, I mean, when you watched him in the preseason, the guy was just – it was scary. I mean, we've seen AJ, it seems like, get better. It seems like it's impossible for him to get better. Mm-hmm. But he gets better each and every year. And immediately that was – I think it was the second preseason game or the third one. I think it was the third one because our offense struggled in the second one. But in the second and third, honestly, he just seemed like he was unstoppable. And it seemed like every play, it was like, okay, even though you have John Ross, even though you have Tyler Eifert, all of these weapons, this offense still runs through A.J. Green and Andy Dalton. And I think that we'll definitely see that today. I would love to see that because the way that these Ravens fans are talking, like the only reason that A.J. has gotten off on them was because Jimmy Smith was hurt. I don't even understand that because was Jimmy Smith hurt in every game? Or was it just that game when AJ basically torched him for 200 yards? And we saw what happened last year with the season opener last year, what AJ did to Revis. 200 yards. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see them go to AJ heavy this game.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand why. Maybe I just don't think I'm underestimating the Ravens.
Right.
I feel like we're going to be successful today, and I'm excited to watch us play.
Right, and I think, and to me, it's not that I don't think that it's going to be a tough game, especially against the Ravens. And I don't want to put it off like I'm just downplaying them because I know in a couple of the comments, the last video we did, they were like, you just overlooking the Ravens. I don't really necessarily think it's that. It's just we kind of know the Ravens. You know, it's like before back when they had Ray Lewis and they had Ed Reed, you always worried about playing them because those guys were X factors in the games. I popped bottles when Ray Lewis and Ed Reed got out of there.
Me too.
That was like one of the best moments for me. And then like the last player before that I remember being kind of worried about were the last two. I can fairly say two. Number one was Ray Rice before he kind of fell off of a cliff. And number two is Steve Smith. When they got Steve Smith, he was definitely good.
Yeah.
But other than those guys, we kind of know how to play the Ravens. It's not like a Steelers thing. Like when I'm playing against the Steelers, it's almost like, okay, I'm not sure how this game is going to go. I know that it's going to be close, but you know, there's no way of telling how this game is going to go. With the Ravens, it's almost kind of like our coaching staff and our players know how to play against them. We know how to beat them. We know how to get into Flacco's head. You combine all of those with the fact that last year, you know, out of 2 games, the second game, we didn't have an A.J. Green. We didn't have a lot of guys. We didn't have a Giovanni Bernard. And you're coming back fully healthy. And not to mention that the Ravens have taken some losses on the offensive line, taken some losses on the wide receiver position. Because even though you have Jeremy Maclin, you still lost Steve Smith. I don't think that it'll be a game where we'll really struggle against them. But I don't think that it's going to be a blowout either. I don't think it's going to be a 30-7 or anything like that. So, G, I'm going to ask you for your prediction on this game as far as the score. But I'm going to say that mine is going to be 24-20 Bengals. I've been saying it all week. I feel like that's a good, decent score. So what is your thoughts on what the outcome of this game will be?
I'm thinking 31 Bengals and 27 Baltimore.
Nice. 31-27 Bengals. So we both seem to have it being a close game, a 4-point spread.
I mean, and, like you were just saying, like, it's not that the Ravens are like a bad team at all, because, you know, watching their season last year, it's just kind of like we just know how to play them, like you said, because even though they lost to us, they were winning other games and they finished the season ahead of us in their wins. So it's kind of like they are a pretty decent team, but we, like you said, know how to play them.
Right. And it's like, honestly, I don't think, you know, a lot of Ravens fans are talking about their defensive line and how we're going to have to worry about it. I think that a lot of them are kind of feeding into the media narrative that our offensive line is horrible, where if you've been paying attention in the preseason, it's clearly, I'm not going to say better, but you can see the differences between this year's protection and last year's, and obviously they made that a focal point. But I think that they're discounting our defensive line, and it's like we have, you know, 2 perennial Pro Bowlers already, and Carlos Dunlap and Geno Atkins. And I think that one of the biggest storylines, other than the offensive line, if you're not talking about the offensive line from preseason, you're talking about the defensive line. You're talking about that new injection of Jordan Willis. Who else am I thinking of? Carl Lawson. Also Chris Smith. So you're talking about 3 guys who we've been waiting for literally the past 3 years for these guys to, I guess, give Geno and Dunlap a hand. You're talking about unleashing these guys this year, and they found those guys that can complement them. That's scary, because there's a big difference when you're going from a Wallace Gilberry and a Marcus Hunt and a Will Clark to a Carl Lawson, a Jordan Willis, and a Chris Smith. So I hope to see a pretty good game. I think that the Ravens will probably have a little bit of a vanilla offense in a sense, just because it seems like Joe Flacco, like you said earlier, doesn't have much experience with this team. So we'll see. But I really don't see the running game, like I said, outside of Danny Woodhead, really being an issue for us.
Me either. Not with our defense. Not for our defense. I don't think so.
Exactly. I mean, obviously the big news is that Vontaze Burfict is out of the game. And Vontaze Burfict, how did I forget this? Obviously, the Bengals extended Vontaze Burfict to a 3-year, $38 million extension.
But look, the crazy thing about it is, how are you getting an extension on your contract whilst you're suspended?
Right.
I'm suspended and I'm signing contracts extensions. Like, that's just so crazy.
Right.
But shout out to him. I'm glad we got him.
I think it was the best move, and I think me and you even talked about that's where we kind of saw the Bengals going, was with extending either Eifert or Burfict before the season. And typical Bengals style, they always do that. I think what it was the Bengals, and from what I hear just from listening around, it seemed like Marvin Lewis actually had a very good case when he presented the appeal for Burfict's suspension, and they were pretty actually upset that it didn't get reduced to 0 games. So I think this was more of a FU to the league. Like, clearly, you know, he didn't do anything wrong. And we're going to show, just like in true Mike Brown style, we're going to show that we're going to have our guys back. So not only does he get the 3-year, $38 million contract, it's a higher average. It makes him the highest paid inside linebacker in the league, which there's always been this stereotype that Vontaze Burfict is just a dirty player, and it kind of overshadows how good of a linebacker he actually is.
Great.
But that also sends a message. But the best part about it, and the best part about any Cincinnati Bengals deal, is it's not fully guaranteed. It's almost a year-to-year contract. So every year, Burfict is going to have to come out there, bust his butt to make sure that he's going to end up as the top-paid linebacker. And I don't think that there's any issue with that, because even though the Bengals don't tend to give a ton of guaranteed money, they're a loyal team, and they're going to let you play out this contract. And even if you're in a place like a Michael Johnson is right now, or Leon Hall was before, where most teams would probably cut those guys, they're going to make sure that you see the full length of that contract. So I'm very excited for Vontaze Burfict. I think it was a great move. Unfortunately, it also led to them not coming to an extension with Tyler Eifert, but the plan seems to be that if Tyler Eifert has a year like he did in 2015, their plan is to franchise tag him. So I love that too.
Okay. I like that too. As long as he can stay healthy. I love Eifert. I just need him to be healthy.
Right. So before we get out of here, G, I just have one. I'm gonna put you on the spot again. I have one last thing before we kick the season off, and I want to know what your prediction is for the 2017 Bengals. What do you think their record is going to be?
I have us with a 10-6 season, but
Nice.
wild card AFC playoff team.
Okay. I actually really see us going 10-6 as well. I'm gonna let's see. I really wanted to be like, I was feeling like the safe pick would be 9-7.
Me too.
But I really see 10-6. But I'm gonna go over that because I think that the Bengals are going to exceed expectations this year, but they're not going to match that 2015 season where they went 12-4. So I'm gonna go with 11-5. With everything going on with the infusion of a Joe Mixon, who, from what I've heard from a couple of people, is seriously considered to be an offensive rookie of the year candidate. I also think with the infusion of pass rushers to this defense, when Vontaze Burfict gets back, I can see 11-5. I can really see 11-5. Marvin in a contract year. This has to be a season where it's a success. They have to get to the playoffs. They have to get this playoff victory, or Marvin Lewis is out of here. And I think that there's no better year than this year. I think, like you said, I could definitely see, even with them going 11-5, I still could see a wild card as well, because I could see Pittsburgh going 11-5, or they said 12-4, but I really think, honestly, people are going to say that I'm a Pittsburgh hater, but there's going to be a thin line between Pittsburgh going 11-5 and 8-8, and I'm going to seriously say that. Like, I looked at their schedule, and I can easily see them losing 8 games, 7-8.
Like, I just see them losing Ben Roethlisberger somewhere in between here. And then when you lose Ben Roethlisberger, I mean,
when has Ben Roethlisberger played a full season in the last 3 years?
So I feel like this is the one where it's like, there's no coming back. Like, he's out for the rest of the season, and there goes the rest of your season. So I think
I think, like you said, it's Roethlisberger injury
or the 8-8.
Right. And then you also have to take into account, like, a lot of people just think about, I guess, the actually going out there and playing side of it. But you have Le'Veon Bell, who's disgruntled. That's gonna mess up your locker room, bro. Like, whether he's one of your key players or not, the whole time he's gonna be thinking about this last year. Just like Witt kind of was upset a couple years ago, is that contract situation. And you didn't do anything to mend it. So if Le'Veon Bell, and that's the thing, too, he could get hurt. Like, you're talking about a guy who gets hurt when he shows up to the training camp. He hasn't been in training camp. He's missed the entire camp. He could end up getting hurt because he's not in shape.
Right.
So, it's a thin line. And even with all of those guys, I do respect the Pittsburgh Steelers. You'd be a fool to discount the fact that they have the best running back in the league, one of the best receivers in the league. I don't tend to feel as high as other people do about Ben Roethlisberger. I think he's definitely prone to throw some interceptions. But, I mean, he's a decent quarterback as well. And then you have Martavis Bryant, who is also explosive. But I just think that they've got some tough teams that they have to play this year. And it's not just going to be a cakewalk for them. It's not going to be, a pathway to 7 that they kind of see it being, where they're only going to go 12-4. I have us splitting with them this year. So I don't think it's going to be a thing where the Steelers or anything like that. I think it's going to be a split.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be – it's not going to be Cleveland. It's not going to be Baltimore. I definitely think it's going to be us in Pittsburgh. So.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely us and the Steelers, like you said. I just hope that the Browns can somehow pull off a victory again this year, just like they did last year. I don't even know how the Browns beat them last year, but I think that would be very interesting, and I'll be keeping my eye on that because the Browns have had a really good preseason. Deshaun Kaiser is definitely much improved, but we'll see.
Myles Garrett is out.
Myles Garrett is out. That's true. See, I wasn't as high on Myles Garrett, though, as everybody else was.
Oh.
I feel like he was
Because he had a good preseason. He had a good preseason.
He had a good preseason?
Had a good preseason.
Okay, well, maybe he was because I didn't. Yeah, I was actually For some reason, when it came to the Browns, I was actually interested in Kaiser. Kaiser was out there looking good. I don't know if you got to see him.
I mean, I was watching a few games and I was just like, is Cleveland out here kind of looking good? I picked up Cleveland's defense in fantasy. But then I dropped them as soon as I found out Myles Garrett wasn't playing. But they were looking pretty good in the preseason.
Yeah, they definitely did. And I think, man, you talk about something that can change a team like that is definitely the quarterback position. I think that's been their main struggle. So if they do find one this year, but we'll see. I think, like you said, it's going to come down to us in Pittsburgh. And I'm not saying by any means that I'm solidifying them going 8-8. It just wouldn't surprise me if that did end up happening, say, like you said, a Ben injury or a Bell injury. They're not the same team for sure.
Right.
But with that being said, guys, I'm out here in Alabama going to try to figure out what's going to happen with Hurricane Irma. But, G, I appreciate you working with me with this flexible schedule. You guys at home, thanks for watching. I know that from my end, this was an episode that was all over the place, but I tried to do what I could to at least make sure that you guys had your new Stripe City for this Saturday. So hopefully I'll still have a home to come home to next weekend. And that's just a joke. It shouldn't really hit us too bad. Everything should be fine, and we'll be back to our regularly schedule. And as always, it's Who Day, all day, every day, and especially on Sunday. Let's get it.
Who Day? So do you want to just say or what were you want to do while I was there?
Cool. White girl, black girl. Oh man, I feel like time